Backcountry Colorado, hiking, backpacking.
I did a lot of marathons and was convinced to do some ultras.
Climbing, and I do filming and photography.
I just like the ultras because I love the community. I just think that everybody is so nice, whether they're the first place finishers or, you know, us that kind of mosey along.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and this segment is That's So Boulder. And we're here at Boulder Running Company. Our sponsor is Boulder Beer. Thanks so much to loosen up our nerves. And
Cheers.
R.A.D is in the back. Real Athlete Diets. They're awesome. They're mostly gluten-free, which is So Boulder.
So Boulder.
They will bring you some delicious nutritional food. If you're an athlete that maybe works too much and spends too much time with your family, that you need amazing food delivered to you. So thanks for being here. I just want everyone to know that I'm going to ring my mindfulness bell. It sounds like this. If we need to move on.
That's So Boulder.
Can we just hear that again one more time? So much better.
Just a gentle reminder.
Sorry.
I'm here with Corey as a host as well.
Hello. And Alli is
Alli.
joining us on the mic as well as
Hi.
a host.
So we're just going to go around the table, and please describe who you are and definitely do some humble bragging, because that's what we do in Boulder.
Or just straight up bragging if you want to. It's
yeah.
okay.
It's interesting that you're staring right at me as you're starting it off.
We're starting over here.
Let's have a humble brag contest.
A humble brag contest. Okay. My name's Katie Mardis. I am a ski instructor up at Beaver Creek, and I'm also a mountain bike coach during the summertime for Boulder Junior Cycling and also homeschooled kids. So,
And Katie, what makes Boulder a special place for you to live?
you know what? You can find anything and everything here. It is crazy. It's a recreational mecca. It's beautiful. It's sunny. It's hot. It's snowy. You've got everything here. Yeah.
And what's the group that you coach?
Boulder Junior Cycling.
What age group is that? And how many
Actually, it
people are
goes
involved?
from my group specifically for the development team is 9 to 13 years old, and it goes all the way up through high school.
And how many people are involved in that? From the kids getting trained to the people putting it on?
You know what? It takes a village, so you're looking upwards of 100 people. Yeah. But there's about 6 coaches, and I being one of them. So, yeah.
Hi, Kay.
Hello. My name is Kay Tuttle. I live here in Boulder. I help coach the Boulder High School mountain bike team, which is a great amount of fun and really helps keep me in good shape. I also just helped coach the Granite Girls camp in Kurt Gowdy, Wyoming, which is a camp specifically for girls. They have a co-ed camp, too, that follows the Granite Girls camp. And I do a little bit of racing just for fun, and my husband and son both race also.
I heard your son was just on the podium for the GoPro.
Yeah, he got 3rd place in the Enduro for the junior category, which was awesome. It was his first Enduro, so I was kind of surprised. Didn't have high hopes, and I was really pleasantly surprised. And
That's awesome.
he also, he just won the junior division at the Growler, which I was also surprised by.
I guess it helps to have a mom who's coaching. Get like the around-the-clock coaching.
I think I'm more annoying to him than helpful.
How old is he?
17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, Jason.
How you guys doing today? Jason Antin here. I wear a few professional hats, one of them being coach at the Alpine Training Center here in Boulder. I work as a guide for Denver Mountain Guiding. And most notably, and takes up most of my professional passion, is being the Director of Partnerships over at Gociety.com. And if you're not familiar with Gociety, it's a social network for outdoors folks. So my job basically entails helping people get out for an adventure every single day, and that's a pretty easy thing to get up for in the morning. In my side time or non-professional time, I just enjoy long days in the mountains. So,
Sweet.
Is Gociety an app?
Gociety is indeed an app and a desktop platform.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's so Boulder of you.
it is very Boulder.
Todd, how about you?
I'm Todd Straka, also known as Boulder Runner. Behind my social channels, it's usually what I hide behind. I'm a runner mostly, besides a dad and husband and full-time employee. And I try to balance that all out with my running. When I go running, I usually like to take my phone with me, take a lot of photos, and enjoy the outdoors that way.
Todd, I heard you were in an 80s band.
I was in a few 80s bands.
What did you do?
Do tell.
Nothing very successful.
Did you sing?
That was my hope, was to be a singer.
Can you sing something? Just a snippet?
I don't know about that.
Can we fire up a YouTube clip or something?
Do
it. Some VHS
No, we
coming
didn't.
to YouTube.
There was no YouTube back then. Yeah, it's basically how I got into running. Obviously, why I put it on my bio. I was in a singing class, and my teacher said that this opera singer that she knew used to go run 5 miles a day to have this huge lung capacity. And I thought, well, you got to hit all the high notes as an 80s singer, rock singer, right? So I thought, well, I got to go start running, and that's kind of what started it. Obviously, it's not where I ended up, so I won't sing anything today.
In your past life, you were a rock star.
Yeah, I still dream about it.
But what bands were you in?
Nothing notable.
But I lived here in the 80s, so.
Well, this would have been in California, so yeah.
Oh, I'm from
Very
California.
very garage
I
band
know.
oriented.
Thanks, Todd. That's awesome. Hi, Jayme.
Hi, I'm Jayme Moye. I'm an adventure journalist, and I don't actually have a trust fund, so this is the only way I earn money, which
That's
means...
not so Boulder.
So I take a fair amount of risks in what I do. The reporting I did in Afghanistan on the first women's bike racing team earned me Travel Journalist of the Year in 2014.
Hey, Jayme, I forgot to ask everyone else, except one person. What makes Boulder a great place for you to be and live, and why did you choose to live here?
Oh, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but Boulder is shiny, happy Peopleville. So at any given point, you go outside and just whoever you see, you're feeling inspired on some level. Or on the flip side, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you go outside, whoever you see, you're like, fucking Boulder.
It's true, right? And Alli.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Alli Fronzaglia, and I am the founder of Boulder Hiker Chicks. And we are a local women's hiking group that has really grown in the last year and a half or so. And we are just regular women that go out for hikes. And sometimes we do really cool stuff, and sometimes we do lame stuff, but we always have fun.
And Alli, you're also a writer. Who do you write for?
I write for yourboulder.com. So I write hiking guides and anything having to do with the trails, outdoors, and I usually keep it local. Sometimes do little field trip pieces and stuff, but I think one of my favorite things about Boulder is that everything's right here. So even though Colorado is an incredible place where you can travel 2, 3, 4 hours or more and see amazing things, it's also equally amazing to me that we have so much right in our backyard. So yeah, so we do a lot of so I write pieces about local Boulder trails, and in the Hiker Chicks we do hike all of these trails all the time.
So I recently did the Five Peak Traverse with Alli's group, the Boulder Hiker Chicks, and I've known Alli for I think 5 years now, and she started this group 3 years ago, and we're just going to play a little segment from the Boulder Hiker Chicks that I recorded.
So I think intro the first one and say this first one was with a person's name, or does that not matter?
The first person I was talking to, her name is Sunny, and she typically is very far ahead of everyone else. I had to like run to catch up with her at 5:30.
Sunny's a Boulder Runner chick, and she sometimes hikes with us.
Hiker/runner chick. So here's Sunny.
Well, initially, when I came across a posting mentioning that there was going to be the 5 Peaks in the fall, I decided, well, it's something I always wanted to do. And I was in shape over the summer from all the hiking and running I did in the mountains. And I thought, I'm ready. And so I can get something check off on my bucket list. And it's part of being a community of women who share the same interests, and they're there to support each other. So that's where I feel the value of this group is, that sense of support.
Yes. Sunny is Sunny has done several hikes. Is it okay for me?
Yeah.
Sunny's done several hikes with us, and we have a wide range of women that hike with us in our group, and we do a wide range of hikes. So we do all levels. We do beginners or all levels, easier, moderate, strenuous. Obviously, the most strenuous that we do right now would be the Five Peak Traverse. And there's definitely a continuum that, for the women who join us. And Sunny would definitely be on the far end, somebody who this is one accomplishment for her of many. She has many, many amazing athletic accomplishments. And she's an incredible person, and we love having her. On the other end of the spectrum, we also have people who, we have a hiker chick who had weight loss surgery and lost 65 pounds, and part of her program was hiking with us. And that was her first time getting fit and really being consistently active. And we have people who, are losing weight, are beginners. We have people who are athletic and have other things that they do, and this is one piece of it. So it kind of runs the gamut. And Sunny's an example of somebody who does it with us for the fun of it. Like she could do it forwards and backwards, no issues. And she does it because, she likes to take on a new challenge, and she likes to be with the women and enjoy the friendship. And our focus is always on the friendship and meeting people and just being together and having fun. And so, it was good that you got to talk to her. I liked hearing her feet. Trekking along quickly.
And we'll hear more interviews with different types of people on the podcast.
Yeah, so right now we're just listening to some excerpts of what will, ultimately be a piece with Kelly and Eric. Well, actually, we will have already heard the real piece, so forget that. Next, we're going to listen to Kelly heading up Green.
Oh, sweet.
We are now hiking up to Green Mountain, right? The third peak. We all feel really good. Do you guys feel good? Yeah. Yeah, feel really good. It's
yeah.
Feel good, right? I'm with 3 women. We're in our little subgroup out of almost 70 women, but there's 4 of us who've broken off, and the 3 of them except me are divorced. So I'm hearing all about their sex lives and dating.
Yeah.
And it's way more interesting than anything else that I've talked about on this podcast thing. And it just made me think about the one thing that I really love about endurance type of sports or activities is that you always are with people that you kind of barely know. I know Val, but we don't hang out that much, and the other 2 girls I barely know. And now I know, their whole sex life. And it's fabulous. Just to, hear just all about everyone in there. People just get really real out here. And it's just a different kind of connection that's so authentic. So we're talking about that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is why we are a women's hiking group, and this is why I think it resonates so much, and so many women are excited to join us and join us again and again, is because, number one, the trails are just so conducive to having conversation, and I think especially hiking versus running maybe is slightly more conducive to conversation, I imagine. I'm not a runner, but because we're hiking, we actually can talk the whole entire time pretty much. And I think something about being on the trail where you're looking forward, you're not having to face each other. You know, like this person you just met, you're not just staring at them the whole time. You have a purpose, and you're joined together in this purpose, looking forward together in your feet. And people just open up. And I've had so many amazing experiences and conversations with women on the trail who I had just met, or, you know, maybe had gone on 1 or 2 hikes with, and, you know, conversations flowing and stuff comes out, and you learn a lot about women. And it's freeing, I think, for a lot of women. You know, there are a lot of co-ed hiking groups too, and that's great also. But I think just like it's important for men to spend time with men, it's important for women to spend time with women. And there's things that happen when it's just women out there on the trail, and we're exhausted, and we're being goofy and stupid and, like, you know, oversharing, which is like one of my favorite things. And you know, so that definitely happens. So obviously you experienced that when you were with us, and that was great. And like you said, you know, we had a lot of women for this 4th traverse, and, you know, everybody kind of breaks down into smaller groups, and you get to know those people you fall in line with really well, because you might I went back and forth between a couple subgroups, but you end up with like this smallish group of people. Even though there were maybe 60 or 70 of us out there, you end up with, you know, the same 7 or 8 women mostly the whole way through. And by the time you're done, like, you're forever bonded. Forget it. Like, and you know, because they know all your secrets.
And I think that happens in all racing too. Jason, I think I read something that you said that you love endurance stuff because, and just coming from a man, what happens when you're with your dudes doing stuff, biking or running or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a bond that comes from that. I have some incredible friends I've met out during endurance events, and I've always said it's a great pre-qualifier for spending more time with them. It's an instant friend validator because, they've usually got a good sense of humor if you're hanging out with them, chatting with them. They like long days because they're probably doing whatever you're doing, which could be a 50K, 50 miler, 100 miler or longer. And they always have a good attitude while doing it. So to me, it's an instant qualifier for finding good folks to spend time with. And yeah, there's definitely a bond out there in the mountains. You know, you're going through the same thing together, and you know it. And so it's a neat way to get to know some folks and build that community.
Totally. Todd, can you speak to that at all? Running with people, or? Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's a lot of times that I run by myself. So when I am running with folks, it is nice to have that opportunity to have deeper conversations with people and talk about life. And sometimes we just talk about running, and it's just as shallow as that, right? Like, runners like to talk about runners, but running. So.
We talk about food a lot. I don't know if you have that experience.
Yeah, sometimes.
When you're out there for a long time, food comes up a lot.
Right. But you're right. Like, sometimes the conversations are fairly short because we are, traversing a mountain or going faster than we should be. So it's at the task at hand. But there's other times on Sundays I join some friends of mine like Mike Sandrock, and we just have conversations about science or life or whatever else there is. So it's a good opportunity.
Thanks, Todd. What's next? Were we going up Sanitas?
We could do, yeah.
Yeah.
So to round out the, just kind of oversharing or just speaking out loud, whatever comes across your mind, here's the final segment we'll listen to now is Headed Up Sanitas.
There's 5 of us, and we're coming up to Sanitas, the 5th peak, and we're getting fired up. We're a little bit afraid of the judgment of the other people on the trail, thinking we're out of shape and not knowing that it's our 5th peak and that we probably should add T-shirts. Okay.
Yes?
This was just about going up Sanitas after doing something long, and we were talking about, like, what pushes you to keep going. Is there anything that helps you to keep going when you feel totally exhausted?
I don't think there's anything specific. I just push through I like the state that you get to when you've pushed yourself really hard. I like how that feels, and sometimes, like a person who coached me once was teaching me that when you're mountain biking and you want to get up a technical section of a trail, that you should, he called it, look ahead to victory, like look ahead to the end of that technical section. Don't look at the rocks you're on, look in front of you and go there. So sometimes I think of that, and I think of the end as look ahead to victory. And I also grew up riding horses, and there's a term for horseback riding when your horse turns in the direction of the barn. It picks up the pace because they're like, yay, I'm going home. And sometimes I do that. I'm like, what am I going to eat when I get home? I'm getting barn sour. I need to finish this ride. And then I like pull through and get that extra push.
So what's on that list? Like, what's the best thing to eat when you get back home?
Oh, man. Something salty. Yeah. Popcorn with a lot of salt.
Anyone else? Favorite post-race snacks? Unless you live in Boulder and it's like, oh, I like quinoa with some kale, just raw.
Tequila.
Yeah.
Giant burritos.
Yeah, that's good.
Pumpkin cheesecake.
Pumpkin cheesecake. Nice. Do you like prepare that before an outing? Like
Whole Foods.
Yeah, nice.
So after Sanitas, we all went to
Hungry Toad.
Hungry Toad.
Shout out to Hungry Toad. They were so nice and accommodating, even though we were like this massively large, smelly group of women. And they worked with us. When I first called them and said, hey, we have, when we first started doing this traverse, we had a much, much smaller group. It was, 6 or 7 women. And then the second one was, 8 or 9 women. And the third one was 24. And then the last one was around 60. And so when I called Hungry Toad ahead of time and said, hey, can you help us out? We love coming to eat at your place, because they really have like awesome like post-endurance event food. We go nuts over like the nachos or like loaded baked potatoes or whatever, and all the beer, of course. But yeah, they were super awesome to basically let us take over their entire restaurant and not charge us for reserving the restaurant. We kind of explained, and I sort of had to say.
When you roll up with 60 people, you're kind of like.
Well, here's the thing.
It's going to work out well for you.
It's very tricky. We were all finishing at different times because everybody paces themselves. And I think that's a good thing because, I want everybody to kind of make it their own experience, my partner Carrie and I. And so some people are finishing at 4 o'clock and other people are finishing at 6 o'clock. And then there's all these other groups in between. So I basically said to them, can we just have like a revolving door where, there's going to be like every 15 minutes, there's going to be a group of 7 or 8 women coming in, but then maybe these other ones will move out and we'll just kind of do the best we can. And they were like, yeah, totally.
So we had right before we play this segment, though, since we're talking about food, Jason, didn't you go up to the Flatirons recently and have dinner up there?
Nice.
Indeed.
Let's hear about
Will you
it.
tell
That
us
is so
about
Boulder.
that before we go?
So this certainly isn't the first time this ever happened, and I can get more into about firsts when it comes to Boulder. But a group of us have decided that we're always so busy, so to speak, and we never have time to see each other. So we've started making sure we have dinner together every Wednesday night in Boulder, and just kind of threw it out there. Why don't we have dinner instead of at Sam's house at the base of Chautauqua? Why don't we have it in Chautauqua, halfway up the first? And so we did. So we had, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 people up there. We brought tables, chairs. We got some Mexican food from Pica's, and everyone had to bring a different dish. Plenty of Mexican themed libations, and we had a huge crew up there to enjoy our Wednesday night dinner halfway up the first.
That's awesome.
How do you even get all that up there? Are you like roping stuff up, or like how?
Yeah, Corey,
we carrying it, or what?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So. If you guys aren't familiar with the First Flatiron, it's got a varying level of difficulty depending on who you are. So,
and just in general, what is it, like a 60 or 70 degree angle or something? More?
Yeah, I mean,
if it's not from here.
Yeah, no, great question. So it rises over 1,000 feet of climbing on rock. So it's not necessarily 1,000 vertical feet from top to bottom, but you're over 1,000 feet on the rock. It's considered low angle, but it's still a 5-6 technical rock climbing route. So, yeah. But people...
So that makes for a good dinner.
It makes for a fantastic, well-earned dinner, yeah.
And everyone who had that dinner climbed up.
Yeah, you had that's the price of entry for that restaurant is getting up the direct route. So we had everyone climbing it, from folks pitching it out with ropes, including my wife, who's 7 months pregnant. All two folks.
Yeah, that's so
And there she is.
And all the way to another person who free soloed it in Chaco sandals.
Oh, wow. Of course.
Who was it? Who was it?
A gentleman named Rush Combs. Yeah. But that's varying levels of difficulty. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Thanks, Jason. So we're going to just play, I finally got to talk to Alli after hours of hiking.
Oh, boy. I vaguely remember this.
Sorry. Are we doing this? Do we have time?
Yep.
That's going to make it into our super special mix.
We started about 3 years ago, and we had 59 chicks show up today. And certainly when we started this, I had no idea. I mean, I didn't even know 59 people in Boulder when we started this. So the idea that we would have 59 women coming on a hike like this, all with the same goal and all supporting each other, was not even in my vision at all. I didn't have that. But it's been an amazing experience to get to this point where, I mean, I started the Boulder Hiker Chicks somewhat selfishly because I wanted to go for hikes, cool hikes, explore the system, and meet people and make new friends because I was new to town. And when I hooked up with Carrie and we started hiking more and we started talking about the Five Peak Traverse, and we started thinking about, can we actually do this Five Peak Traverse? Sometimes people call it a Skyline Traverse. To me, at the time, I'm not an athlete. I'm fit. I like to be active, but I'm not an athlete. I'm not professional. And so to me, this seemed like a really awesome challenge that we could take on personally. And the more we talked about it, and the more we made it our goal, the more people started jumping on board, and the more people were really excited about it. And our very first traverse, we only had, I think, maybe 8 people. And we were so excited by that. We thought that was phenomenal to have 8 people doing this 5 Peak Traverse, and we did it, and we were so excited because we'd never done it before. I thought it was like it was a reach for me at the time, physically and mentally. And then when we did that, the more we started talking to people, the more people were like, oh my gosh, what is this? Tell me more about it. Like, could I do this? I would like to do this. People liked the idea that it's a non-competitive event that's right in town. There's no travel involved. You don't have to make extensive preparations. And it's reachable for most people with an average fitness level if they just work for it. So the more we did it, the more we started talking about it, the more people wanted to join us. So here we were today with 59 hiker chicks doing the 5 Peak Traverse, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
So, Alli, we really got caught on the fact that you said I'm not an athlete, and I feel like everyone's an athlete, and you too, Katie, right? You help coach kids.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting to talk about, within us, what do you consider an athlete versus a not athlete?
Well,
and then as you see
I
kids,
think everybody is an athlete in their own right. I mean, you really can't define it and say, "Oh, you're not an athlete." Right. I mean,
I think
not
hearing
very
my comment,
empowering.
I actually think that was So Boulder. I think it's easy to say you're not an athlete if you're not up here. And so as I heard myself say that, I thought, well, give yourself some credit. You are an athlete, but it's funny that living here in this bubble, you sort of, even though I don't.
It's hard not to compare yourself.
Yeah,
to other
exactly.
people.
Yeah,
it really is.
The people at this table.
Right.
Exactly.
That too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It's kind of tricky sometimes, living here.
Right.
And saying, oh, I'm not an athlete, but I just did a 100-mile mountain bike race, Oh, I just do it for fun. And people are like, are you crazy?
Right. Right.
So anyway, yeah. But empowering the children, our future generation of cyclists is really, really important to me. And that's why I do what I do, is I love these kids and I want them to share that passion and have that passion. And basically just let them know that, you know what, you're an athlete, whether you climb that hill or not. You're out there, you're doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Todd, how do you feel about that? I mean, do you have training groups and?
Yeah, I was going to say, Something that you guys mentioned earlier, it's kind of one of those things where you mentioned, this is our 5th peak that we did, and only if we had T-shirts that let everybody know. I think that's pretty standard Boulder fare, right? Where you're out and you think you're killing it on the bike and you're climbing a hill, and you might pass somebody, but they probably have already been out for 5 hours, and you're fresh off fresh on the bike. And it's actually one of the things I love most about Boulder. You really have no idea who anybody is in this town, because it could be a phenomenal rock climber or an elite cyclist or elite runner. So I kind of always look at everybody with little rose-colored glasses in some ways, right? Because you just never know. Like, there's no way to compare yourself to anybody else. But I think I've worked with running groups and coached a little bit with some of the running groups in town. And definitely people feel like that. They're like, if you're faster than somebody else, then they all feel like, well, I'm not worthy to be standing next to you, or and I'm not all that fast. I'm faster than some of my peers, but not faster than others. And I'll ask people to go for a run with me just on a regular lunch run, and they're like, oh, no, I'm not fast enough for you. I'm like, well, I'm not asking you to go for a run so I could bury you and prove something to myself. I'm asking you so we can go have a conversation and learn a little bit more about each other and have some community. But it's definitely in the air, I think anywhere, but Boulder in particular.
And Todd, you had also mentioned the fact that you do a lot of solo, correct?
I do. Yeah, it's just because of my schedule.
Yeah.
I have to get in my run in the morning, or I have to get in during lunchtime.
Right. So. And being an endurance athlete, that's what I find as well. I do a lot of solo stuff.
What's it like for kids that you train from Boulder? Do they have that same sense
well,
of
it's
who's an athlete?
really,
Is it
it's really diverse. That's a really great question. I teach homeschooled kids as well. So, you have the full gamut. They're getting bikes that are recycled and used and completely piecemealed, and they're rocking it. And then you have the Boulder Junior Cycling, where their parents are former triathletes and, these amazing Olympic athletes. It's breeding stock here. So you get these kids who are, 9 years old, and they're clipped in and they're just ripping up hills, and you're like, whoa, you're killing it, man. So, I really have a great time.
Which sounds like Kay's son fits that description.
Rainer's killing it, that's for sure. Yeah. So. But it's a lovely thing. It really is, to see these kids and to see them just super empowered and really just having a great time.
I really think too, and Jason, you train people, so I'm sure you can speak to this a little bit. You can decide you want to do something, and I've done this so many times, and you just train for it, right?
No doubt about it. I think to answer the question, what defines an athlete, I think if you change your lifestyle to meet a certain athletic goal, then you're an athlete. If what you're excited about doing in the athletic world is something you daydream about, you're an athlete. At the Alpine Training Center, I remember first year I worked there, I'd come in from Massachusetts, and I was kind of used to very hands-on, one-on-one personal training. And I walked in the door, and Connie Shalina, the owner, kind of gave me the rundown. She made me train with those guys for about 2 months before she let me take the helm there. But I showed up to coach, and people are just, it's on autopilot. People are training themselves. They have their goals, they have their things they need to do, and they're just hammering away. And I basically just watching in awe of the motivation that's taking place in front of me. And every single person in that room was an athlete. They're taking control of what they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like so many people come to Boulder or this area or wherever where you have really strong athletes, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you do that. And really you just decide to do it. And a lot of this podcast is about getting people to say, oh, I want to try that. And if you decide to do it, then, there's people here at this table that could probably help you out, and you will be able to do that. So, yeah. We're going to move on now and go to the reporter's corner.
You should ring your thing.
Oh, yeah. It's a moment of silence. Jayme, we haven't heard from Jayme because we want Jayme to talk a little bit.
Jayme writes better than she speaks, so advance apologies.
Can I just ask you one question? because it's So Boulder.
Yes.
How did you take the leap from working for Oracle, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, I blame it on a bike. So I was 10 years into a nice, lucrative career in the tech sector, and I started, actually got injured from running, not from running. I got injured because I took the stairs on the Eiffel Tower in Paris in 2-inch heels because, I was in Paris. And I couldn't run, so I needed to do something, so I took up biking. And one thing led to another, and I ended up bike racing. And this all ties back, I swear. But it's funny because people have said that the bike has this really almost mysterious impact, especially on women. I mean, in U.S. history, if you look back, like turn of the 19th century, the bike was this major catalyst for change. The women's suffrage movement came about during that time. It's like once women start riding bikes, they're empowered and their lives change. And that sort of happened for me. Like all of a sudden, everything shifted, and I was no longer satisfied with my job or ultimately my marriage. And I was a captain of the women's road bike race team, Title IX, which doesn't exist anymore. But and we were a road bike race team, and I was just doing it recreationally. But I had to write the team race report as part of my captain's role. And at one point, one of the gals was like, "You should write for Velo News." Because I didn't just write like what the race conditions were and what the temperature was and what other teams were there. I would write it narrative and I would write it, humorously. So they thought my race report's really funny. So they're like, "You should write for Velo News," which is a cycling journal published here in Boulder. And I'm like, I should write for Velo News. And I did, and that was really kind of like the catalyst to it all. It's like this light bulb just went off my head, which was, you can make money writing, which is something you do anyways for a hobby, and writing about things you love. So it was like, yeah, let's do this.
Jayme, that's so inspiring, and that's another example is like you just decided that you were going to be a writer, and you made it happen, which is really awesome. And we would love to hear some fun stories or a story from your adventure reporting. Do you have any or one?
I do.
Oh, good.
One of my favorite recent adventures was I got an email from a man who worked for a nonprofit called Plant with Purpose. And basically, they, just like it sounds, they plant things, trees mainly, in the developing world, or places that have just become over-farmed or deforested for whatever reason. And they had read an article of mine in National Geographic Adventure about a bike race that was being put on in Haiti, the first mountain bike race there. And they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we read that story of yours, and we thought you might be interested in our project. We are planning the first, or our partner is planning the first legal paragliding attempt from the summit of Kilimanjaro, which is the tallest peak in Africa. Would you be interested in reporting on it?" And I was like, heck yeah, tell me more. So anyways, as it turns out, the project was a good fit for the kind of writing I did. So I went out with the team that was in charge of scouting Kilimanjaro for the best route up the mountain for a group of paragliders, plus, their Sherpa, or they're not called Sherpa there, they're porters there, and all of their equipment. They were planning on bringing up a group of at least 100 paragliding pilots. And when you look at, their equipment and the support you would need for a group that size, which would be the largest ever to undertake Kilimanjaro at one time, we're talking like 1,000 people. So what we did is we actually went out there. We all met up there. And we set out on what I would call like a circumnavigation of the mountain. So we weren't just trekking it from base to summit. We started out on the northeast side, and we spent 8 days just kind of inspecting all the different campsites, like which campsites could accommodate this group, which route it would be unpassable with a lot of gear because it was too narrow or too technical. And then once we got to the top, we were looking at where would be the best place to launch. So something that, ideally had kind of a slightly downward slope, not a lot of rocks and debris and that kind of thing. So it was really interesting to see the perspective of paragliding pilots on the mountain, because they were, I'm looking at the view the whole time, right? And they're looking at the clouds or they're looking at the way birds are soaring because they're trying to determine what, the thermals or the wind patterns are like. So it was just a really interesting perspective, and I was really happy with the story that came out from that, which was also for National Geographic.
Wow. That sounds so awesome.
Yeah.
What a fun story to write. Can you find your stories on National Geographic? Do you just search?
Yeah, you can. NationalGeographic.com. They have a huge, robust website, and they have, if you just Google my name on it, you would find it.
Great. Okay, great.
So Boulder. If you just Google my name, it's on National Geographic.
Yeah.
Well, I give Boulder a lot of credit for helping me to get a competitive edge in a really competitive field. I mean, it's hard to break into a freelance writing career, especially I was in my early 30s. It was like trying to break into a career. I already had a certain lifestyle and a certain amount of money I kind of needed to make. It was scary at first. It's still kind of scary, I'm not going to lie. But I think being here from Boulder allows me to do adventure journalism at a level that a lot of people from other places can't do. And the reason I say that is because my perception of hardcore, living in Boulder is so derangedly skewed.
Right.
So, when a story opportunity comes up that not a lot of people could take, oh, hey, do you just want to go jump in on a trek to almost 20,000 feet with a group of high-altitude paraglider pilots from Australia and the UK? I'm like, sure. Because, I've climbed a couple of 14ers over the summer. So it's I don't even have to train for it. I'm just ready to go. And I think that's given me a huge advantage and allowed me to say sure to a lot of things that other people would be like, are you crazy? I'd have to train for a year to do that. And it also bites me in the butt, I think, too, because, when you're interviewing people like Dave Hahn, who's summited Everest more times than anyone else, he's, I think, 16 times he's at now. Again, that warps your perception. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do for my 40th birthday? Which was in March. I'm like, ooh, I've climbed 14ers, but I've never done a ski mountaineering ascent of a 14er. And Quandary is, it's our kind of token easy 14er, right? Oh, it's just a long walk. It's like Kilimanjaro. It's not technical. It's kind of gradual. So I'm just going to go ski mountaineer Quandary. And I suffered like a dog on that. And it's that whole Boulder thing, though, right?
Well,
it's like
I gotta
your perception.
Say, this is so Boulder because tomorrow is my 40th birthday, and I'm just doing a measly 3-peak hike.
Oh, just.
It's not,
Just hiking 3
not all
miles.
5, just 3.
I'm
not going to ski.
You're doing the 3 highest, though, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're doing like Bear and Great.
Okay. I live in Boulder.
So, Jayme, speaking of climbing things to get places, could you tell us a little bit about your book, On the Nose?
Yeah, so my first book, On the Nose. Thank you. On the Nose, A Lifelong Obsession with Yosemite's Most Iconic Climb, will be published September 1st by Falcon. And that was actually a project I didn't intend to do. I was contacted by Hans Florine, who is a 52-year-old rock climber living in the Bay Area, who holds the record on the Nose, which is a route on El Capitan, a 3,000-foot granite monolith in Yosemite National Park in California. And it is considered Yosemite's the big wall climbing capital of the world, right? And El Cap is like the holy altar. So this is the climb. A lot of people would argue it's the world's greatest climb. And Hans has done it 101 times at this point, and he holds a speed record on it. So him and his climbing partner, Alex Honnold, have climbed that route 3,000 feet in 2 hours and 24 minutes. Mind you, it took the first team that ever climbed it back in 1958. I'm going to butcher this fact, but it's something like 18 months to figure out how to get up this sheer rock face. And these guys are now doing it. It's like running a marathon. They're flying up this wall, mostly free climbing up it. So back to the book. Hans contacted me in the summer of 2015 by email, and it was cute because I knew of him being in the industry, but I didn't know him. So he took the time to introduce himself in the beginning of the email, like, "Hi, I'm Hans Florine. I'm a rock climber," and I'm like, "Really?" And basically said, "I've got this book project. I want to do a narrative, that's bookended by my first ascent of the nose," which actually not many people know this, was a failure back in 1988. And then my 100th, which I want to do in September 2015. And in between, I want to tell the story of how this route came to mean so much to me that I devoted my life to it, and also tell the history of big wall climbing in the Yosemite Valley, which was going on at that time, which was right when sport climbing started happening, and we start seeing, the speed climbing element as well come in. So it was a really interesting time in Yosemite. And I actually normally wouldn't have said yes, but I had just had another project fall through that I had blocked off a big amount of time for. So I didn't have anything else going on. So I was like, let's talk. And it turned out that we really got along well. And so I agreed to it. Probably about a month into it, I realized there's no way I can write this book without climbing that route.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
Problem is, I was a sport climber, which means I climb in a climbing gym on a top rope, and oh, by the way, hadn't done it seriously in about 15 years. So I had a lot of work to do. This was one of those times when it was like, oh, you're going to climb the nose. You should be training for, 6 to 12 months. And I actually wasn't at quite the right fitness level. So I kind of did a crash course over the next 2 months. I worked with a guy here in Boulder named Bill Wright, who's one of Hans's friends. He took me out to El Dorado, and that's one of the trad climbing meccas of the U.S., right here in Boulder. And he got me up on, some of the classic trad climbing routes there, taught me how to do some of the techniques like jumaring or jugging. And I went out to Yosemite. I met Hans there in September 2015, and we climbed the nose.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We did not do it in 2 hours and 24 minutes. We did it at a gentleman's pace or gentlewoman's pace. We did it in 3 days and 2 nights. And even that, that's a route that some people will spend 5 to 7 days on. Wow. Because I was with Hans Florine, it was, we went pretty fast.
Wow. I saw that you said somewhere that you travel. You travel to write. You don't write to travel, and that's a really good example of that, I think. Right.
That's true. Some people, you're right, like they love traveling, so they're like, well, how can I support a travel lifestyle? Like, writing or photography. But in my case, I'm a compulsive writer. So it was more like, okay, what can I do to get stories that people are going to want to pay me to write? And so I'm doing, adventure reporting and travel to feed that writing compulsion.
And becoming a badass athlete along the way.
Sometimes. Ask the people who are with me on Quandary. It wasn't pretty.
Thanks so much, Jayme. And we're going to wrap this up. And we hope to have some of you back on the show again. Thanks so much also to the Boulder Running Company for having us here, mm-hmm. and also, again, Boulder Beer and R.A.D.
Real athlete diets.
Definitely go back and try some of their food.
That's a wrap.
Outro music.
It's not
boom.
cute.
And then you're in direct contact with this turn.